Hello everybody, today we're going to be making chocolate chunk cookies or chip cookies, and we're going to be practicing the creamy method with my little helper here. Enjoy. Hello everybody, today we're going to be going over the chocolate chip cookie recipe. It's a very great recipe. It's been refined over years and years, and it's very delicious and always a good seller. So before we begin, I just want to talk a little bit about the creamy method. The creamy method involves two things. You have your butter and your sugars, your white sugar and your brown sugar, okay? They both give sweetness and flavor, these sugars, but this one gives more body, and we'll cover that when we have to pack it, and I'm going to show you how to pack it properly. For this recipe, we need 1 cup of each. This is a light brown sugar. There's dark brown. There's all these other kinds. This is, boom, this brand Kerrygold. I prefer this, and it's the closest thing to like a fresh salted butter that we could get around here. You can find it in Costco, Target. Most places carry this now. But you can see it's rather yellow, and I cut this down into little cubes to help with softening it. And the basic thing about this recipe that's very important is that you have to have room temperature soft butter and also room temperature eggs, okay? Because if they're warm, I'm sorry, not if they're warm, if they're cold, they're going to coagulate when you mix it in with the butter and when you try to do the creamy method. So let's start with the creamy method first off. So I'm going to take these things off. All right, get my bowl and then get my rubber spatula. This is what you're going to use today for mixing, as well as this to cream it. Then you're going to use this to fold in the flour, okay? So I'm going to start the creamy method after I do one more prep that I want to show you. Okay, so before I start creaming my sugar and assembling everything into my recipe, I want to prep my other ingredients. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the chocolate we're going to use in this recipe. The recipe says 2 cups of chocolate chips. I like a nice heaping cup, which means, you know, a little bit more than over, so it could be like curved a little bit over so you have more chocolate. I also like to put some in top of the cookie dough before I bake it, and you'll see that. So you have your chocolate chips, you have your white chocolate chips, which we will use for white chocolate macadamia nuts, and these are very nice French brand called Calabout or Calabout or Calabot, depending on which part of the world you're from. And these are nice dark chocolate semi-sweet morsels that your regular chocolate chips. But for the chocolate chunk, we're going to use real blocks of chocolate. This is actually a 10-pound bar that's actually really big, almost as big as this cutting board. This is one piece that's left. And this brand is a Belgian brand called Calabout or Calabout, like I said, depending on where you're from. This is pure Belgian dark chocolate, okay? You can see here, here's another chunk. So I'm going to chop this up. So if you're going to use chocolate chunk, get a good knife, like this one's my heavy knife. And you have the heel of the knife here, and just, you're not going to cut it in half. You're going to try cut it down from the sides like this, okay, or bang that down, okay. This is how you get these chunks, okay. You can't really like fuss with it like this, because you see it's too hard and you're going to have too many shavings, okay. You just want to chunk it up, okay. I mean, you don't have to do this for the recipe. You can use chocolate chips, semi-sweet, or milk chocolate that they have now. Just, I worked in restaurants where you would do 10 to 20 pounds of this a day, and it was not the best of times doing that. So you're going to get these chunks like this. Some of these are a little big. We'll break them up. Okay, the little bits down here, I'm going to separate them, but I'm going to save them for another application. I'm not going to throw these away, okay? Okay, so I chunked this up with my knife, using the butt of the knife very carefully. And just one more side note on this chocolate. This is about 65–70% cocoa, or cacao, as they say, which makes it a little bittersweet, not too bitter, but it's very solid chocolate. You see my chunks here, okay? You want them about this size. You don't want any monsters, and you don't want them too fat, because you want it to break down and melt a little bit while it's in there. I'm going to save some and put them on the top as well before I bake the cookies. So let's move on to the dry goods before we do the creaming, because you want to have all your mise en place ready before we start doing the mixing of the cream. I'm sorry, the creaming method with the butter and the sugar. Okay, so like I said before, you want 3 cups, and you want to use something to level off your cup. Okay, so if you don't have one of those bench scrapers that I used last time, you could use the back of a dinner knife. Okay, so we'll go 1 cup. Okay, in there, use this, kind of push it back, make sure it's nice and level. Okay, so that's pretty good right there. I could go like this and nothing else is coming off, really. Okay, that's 1. When you're taking the flour out of your container, wherever you have a bag, be sure not to press into the bag or the side of the jar you have it in, because you don't want to compress the butter. And that's why it's important to sift it. I meant flour, not butter. Long day. Okay, just 1 more cup. Just carefully, try not to make a mess. But with flour, you're always going to get flour somewhere. Okay, so nice, leveled off. Okay, see it from that angle before it goes in. All right, so we got all our flour. Okay, I put this aside. Okay. All right, now I got my flour in here, and I want to add all my dry goods in here before I sift it. And remember, you can use a sifter or you can use a whisk. I like using a whisk because it makes less of a mess. If you have a sifter that you can crank, that's even better. But the point of sifting is just to aerate that flour, get all those molecules mixed together, the salt, the baking powder, baking soda, flour, get all that stuff evenly distributed inside the bowl here. All right, so this recipe calls for 1 teaspoon baking soda. So you want to level it off. If you have a box, you can kind of level it off the side here. So you know, and just use that to level it. So 1 of those bad boys. Half on the baking powder. Now these will help the cookie to rise. Also the baking soda will help to give it a little more crispiness on the outside. Okay, so I'm going to use my finger here just to level it off. All right, there's the half. Okay, and then with the salt. Now people like to contest this. I use salted butter, and with these I'm going to finish it with some flaked sea salt as well. Some people like it saltier than others, so I don't do them all with sea salt at the end. But for this recipe, it calls for 1 teaspoon of sea salt or salt. So I have it here. Okay, if you have a salted butter that's very strong in salt, some are milder than others, maybe you want to cut back on the salt. So it's not too much to begin with. Okay, so now that all the dry stuff is in there, double check. We got our 3 cups of flour, our baking soda, baking powder, and sea salt. Okay, the other stuff is the wet goods that we're going to do one at a time as I show you the creaming method. So we'll take our whisk and we'll just gently do that. You don't want to do it too fast because you're going to, you know, get flour everywhere. You're going to look like a statue. Okay, so just do this a little bit. Kind of lift. You can hear me hitting the bottom of the bowl. Kind of lift it up and just, you know, fluff it up nice and easy. Just get that all nice and incorporated. Okay. Okay. So this guy's done for now. Okay, so now it's time for the most important part of making cookies and the cookie making process. Now, obviously we could use a stand mixer, but in the beginning I like to show my students to do it by hand. And if it's not soft, the butter, you're gonna have a difficult time creaming. And a lot of people make this common mistake when they're making cookies. You have to cream it for a little while. A lot of people cream it a little bit, but then they take too much time when they're mixing the flour. And when you overmix the flour, you form too much of a strong gluten and you get a tough cookie or a hard cookie. Also, if you don't leave this out a few hours to get really soft, and you can see I could poke my fingers in it, it's nice and soft, okay? You don't want to put it in the microwave and melt it. There's methods to get it room temperature faster, but if it starts melting, it's going to make your cookie spread out, okay? You want a nice cookie that's a little crunchy on the outside, still a little gooey in the middle. So this is what this recipe is going for. So I'm going to start my creaming method process. So I'm going to use my rubber spatula here, okay? And I'm going to use this to scoop all these guys in there to make sure I scrape all the butter. I don't want to leave any butter on here, because if I leave, like say, that much butter, it's going to mess up the recipe. Okay, so scrape all that off as best you can and get it in there. Okay. So at this point, the recipe calls for 1 cup sugar, white, and 1 cup of sugar that is brown. Okay, I'm going to show you how to pack that after I add the white sugar. Okay, 1 cup, just pour carefully. Just then shake it up, make sure you get in there. This is just regular white granulated sugar. Okay, there's many types of different sugars and different consistencies, which we'll go over in another lesson. So this is still not there yet, maybe just a little more. Okay, so the sugar and the butter is always a base for cookies. Most kinds, they start with this base. Okay, now just to show you better here, I got my brown sugar here. Okay, now we want to pack it. Pack brown sugar is you really have to pack it hard, and that's going to help make a chewy cookie. If you just loosely pack it like this, it's not gonna be enough. You have to really pack it in. Okay, let me show you the difference real quick of packed and unpacked. Okay, say we just put 1 cup in here. All right. Okay, I'm not packing it, just loosely. All right. So say this is 1 cup. Okay, we see how little that is right now. So let me do one that's packed, and this makes a world of a difference. Many people don't do this, and this is what makes everything come out not so great. Okay. So let me pack this guy here now. Okay, oh, it's okay if it comes out. So look, we're doing this. Even if it goes over the sides, we'll just clean it up after. Usually in a kitchen or in school, we'll have like a big container, and you could just scoop it right in there and then use your palm to press down. You have to firmly pack it like a super duper sandcastle. Okay, if there's any spots in the cup that feel like they're not full, just get that in there. So now this is packed. It may take a second or two to get it out, but you see there, look at that. That's one, like a perfect block of sugar. And if we were to weigh these on a scale, you would see the difference. Now if I break this up, you can see how much more brown sugar that is than this one. This one's about here. This one is almost like a mountain. Okay, so let me clean this up and we'll move on to the next stage. All right, so now I'm going to add the brown sugar to my butter and white sugar. Also a tip, if you're not baking so much and you have a box of brown sugar that's been in your cabinet for, I don't know, a couple months and it's like rock hard, throw it in the microwave for 20-30 seconds, pop it in there, and it'll soften it right up. Okay, don't throw it away. A lot of people waste brown sugar. Some of the things that don't go bad, honey, sugars, they really don't go bad. Okay, so now I'm going to take my whisk and slowly start to incorporate this. Okay, it's going to be a little tough at first. You see the butter is going to be riding all up into the whisk. Okay, just going to pat it down like that. Knock it down. Okay. Eventually the butter, once you work the butter more, it'll gather with the sugar. Okay. If you want to use something to help pack it down. Okay. I'm just showing you this way just so you can understand how we cream things a little better. All right. Okay. You could always use a stand mixer, much easier, especially if you're doing a ton of cookies, or a hand mixer, or a hand blender. Okay. You want to keep mixing this until it's smooth. Okay. Okay. Just get some of that sugar that dropped out. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna keep mixing this and just pause it, because you don't have to sit here for 5-6 minutes watching this procedure. Okay, so I'm almost done here with my creaming, and you can see it kind of looks almost like an icing consistency, and that's what we want to look for. okay? So it's a lot of work with your hands, but you work up those muscles, especially if you work in the kitchen. You're whisking a lot of stuff by hand, and then they give you the luxury of using the machine. Just a little more. Oh, just be careful. Tap that out. You can do one of these things as well. So this looks about good. Okay, if you want to give it a little taste, it's good, but you know, it's just like big icing. All right, so now I'm going to start to combine my dry. I'm sorry, let me take that back, not the dry. So now we're going to use our eggs. Okay, we're going to add the eggs in one by one. So these are nice, organic, free-range eggs. If you go to many other countries, most eggs are brown, but if you get them from like a farm in Greece or Italy, you'll see the yolk is really orange. And that orange color shows that there's a lot of vitamin and mineral content, and also gives a lot more flavor than like the regular white eggs. Okay, so carefully crack in, just make sure there's no shells. Just do one at a time. Put your thumb in after you have a flat surface, put the thumb in, just crack it open like that. Okay, like open it up like a little container. Okay, discard the shell, and you're gonna mix it in one egg at a time. Okay, now if the butter was too cold, it would start to make chunks. So if you've ever made cookies wrong and you start to see chunks of butter forming when you put that ice cold egg in there, that's why it's really important to have the eggs out with the butter getting to room temperature. Okay, so mixing that in nicely. Okay, that looks about right. Now we're going to do the next one. And just like I said, flat surface once. Put your thumb in. Oh, and just crack it open like that. Boom, like a little, how you doing? Like a little Canadian guy from South Park. Okay? So throw this away. No, just mix it in softly at first so you don't get the yolk and everything spilling out. Scrape down the sides, mix it in well. You could use the whisk to skip down the sides as well. Really incorporate it really nice and smooth. Like we said, this is the best. The good cookies get a good consistency. Alright, so I'm going to get the rest of this off of my whisk, and I think I'm ready now to add the rest of my ingredients. Okay? But most importantly, before I forget, is the vanilla. This is a good vanilla. Okay? You want to use a good vanilla extract. So I like a nice vanilla. So I put about 2 teaspoons. So I just eyeball it. Okay? It's about 1, 2, a little bit more for the hell of it. Fake vanilla, or if it says natural vanilla, is usually made from, I mean, this is a gross tidbit, but it's made from, I think, what are those things called? Some animal's butt. They're made from like beaver butts or beaver urine tracts or beaver bladders. They smell like vanilla. I don't know if they keep using that, but they used to use beaver glands for the smell of vanilla. Look it up. Well, I'll share it with you. It's pretty nasty. So make sure if you get vanilla, it says pure, 100% vanilla. If it says natural vanilla or artificial vanilla, it might have that animal extract in it. So be careful. All right, so now this is looking like a very good base. All right, so let's add the dry stuff, and we'll get these guys baking soon. Okay, so now we're going to add in our chocolate chunks or your chocolate chips, whatever you prefer. All right, so I'm going to put these guys in here. Okay, I'm going to reserve a little bit to put on top. Okay, now we're going to fold these in. Folding it in means not to really mix it, but just to scrape down the sides a little bit as well, and just fold. You're just folding it over. Okay, just bringing that mixture in. And we're going to do the same thing with the flour. Like I said, the most important rule that people break is over mixing the flour when they're making cookies. Okay, so you don't want to overwork the flour. The most important part is to make the creaming mixture as best you can. Get a nice smooth cookie. You can see how nice and smooth that looks. Okay, so use this guy to scrape down your sides. Okay, this is a beautiful tool to have. These silicone spatulas, they bend, they resist heat up to 500-600 degrees. So now we're going to put in the flour little by little so we don't get a huge clump. So I'm going to do it in 2 halves. Okay, and just fold it in, okay? And once it's incorporated, we're gonna stop. Okay, we're not gonna keep mixing. You don't put it in the stand mixer and just leave it and go, go watch TikTok and just leave it for like, 20 minutes until it becomes a piece of cement. Okay, so scrape down the sides, get all that dry flour. Once the dry is absorbed by the wet, you're done. Okay, no more mixing needed. Alrighty, so let's get this guy, and gently, because if you're doing it rough, you're gonna have flour go everywhere. So let's get this guy in there, just folding it together. Okay, make sure to scrape down the sides here. Scrape it down. You can see there, scrape, scrape, scrape. Okay. Some people like to use their hands and squeeze it. You don't want to be too rough with it at this point. Okay. You can see as I keep going, just speed up a little bit. Definitely get in the middle here. Go underneath and lift out from the bottom. A lot of people always forget to mix from the bottom out. You can see the more I'm working, folding this in, the less dry there is. Okay. I want to keep working this until there's no more flour left, or just a little bit of residue on the sides. Okay. Okay. We're about there almost. Okay. All right. So this is what you're looking for. You don't want it to be dry, but you don't want to be loose either. So pretty much like a good thick peanut butter-like consistency. And obviously everybody wants to take a little bit, and I can't help it. I'm adjusting the seasonings. That's good. Salty, a little sweet. Okay, I'm gonna put this guy now in a container, and I want to put it in the fridge for about an hour to let the gluten settle down, and it also makes for a better cookie when it's chilled. Sometimes it's best to leave it overnight, pull it the next day, let it get to about room temperature, and then scoop it out. And I'm going to show you that next. All right, sweet. So I got my guy out of the refrigerator here. My dough, there was a little extra, but I think we ate it. So another thing about putting this in the fridge, it also helps the butter to harden up a little bit. Also guarantee a nice cookie will have some body. It won't like flatten out completely. So let's get our tray ready. And for the tray, we're going to use this called parchment paper. Okay. And just grab a knife. Parchment paper is an industry standard, even though you could put it on an ungreased tray is fine. But you want to do this to, make the process of cooling them faster. Because I'll show you when it's done baking, we could just pull this right off the sheet tray and let it cool and put on the rack faster than if we had them on the metal rack. Because once they're done baking, you want to take them off so they don't carry over, cook, and they don't get too crispy or too hard. So just get a sharp knife, fold it in half. Just run the knife down the edge. You cut it in half because my oven at home doesn't fit, full-size sheet pan. Okay, so we have our half here. Save the other half. Get your pan. And if you notice some other videos, this is not dirty. This is like a patina built up of carbon, and it's actually good for trays like this because it helps to be non-stick as well. So it doesn't mean it's dirty if you see pans like that. Okay, so we got this guy in here now. All right. So I'm going to show you how we portion these out. I'm going to make these a little big, so I'm going to use a blue handle 2-ounce scooper. There's different colors that have different sizes, different ounces. I also use this one for meatballs as well. It's a nice 2-ounce meatball. So the thing that you want to do now, you left this sit out a little bit, it got soft a little to work with. If you try to work with it right outside the fridge, it's going to be a little too hard, so you want to let it soften up a little bit. So I'm going to use the side of the container. This is too big. Okay, so I want to have a consistent size. So I'm going to scrape a little bit off, like that. All right, so that's about it. I'm not going to pack it. I'm just packing a little bit against the side. So I'm going to put it down here. Probably going to do about 6 to 8. Because a tip about cookies like that are big like this, as tall as they are, that's as wide as they're going to be double in size. So if you see these guys here, they're pretty tall. So that means if they're this tall, they're going to spread at least this much. Okay, so I'm gonna make 6 big ones here. Okay, just to demo. You could do them smaller, you could do them any size you like, but I just want to do 6 and save the rest of the batter. Because if we make them all now, we'll eat them all now. Plus, we'll probably eat the batter anyway, even though I advise against it for salmonella reasons. But, you know, if you get good eggs that are cage-free, they really won't have any salmonella. Salmonella is a factory farming thing with the white bleached eggs. Okay. All right, so I got these guys right here. They're looking pretty nice, consistent. So like I said, I have my chocolate left over. I'm going to put some chunks in them just to raise my price point a little bit. Okay, so just gently put some in there like that. Put them on the side. Okay. And just with a few of them. You know, my kids are not crazy about all this chocolate on the top. All right, so just put those chunks, just stab them right in, put some on the side, put some on the top. Okay, that's all big. Right there, okay. Now these two here, I'm gonna add some of my sea salt because I like that sea salt. And you know what, I'm gonna make, this one's gonna be mine so people don't complain. But I've had a lot of students try it like this and I really enjoyed it. Okay, so these cookies, we're going to bake them when I'm finished doing this. The recipe says 8 to 10 minutes at 350. These guys are a little big, so they may need a couple minutes more. But you always want to keep checking on them, okay? You want them to be nice and crisp on the outside, but not burnt, and still be gooey on the inside. So these guys will probably need, I'll set it for about 10 and I'll start checking on them. So my flaky sea salt that I have here is Maldon brand. It's a French flaky sea salt. And I've worked with so many. I have Greek, I have Sicilian. This is a French one. And you can see like the crystals, they're really flaky, but they have a nice saltiness to them. So just going to sprinkle a little bit on there. This is like a good finishing salt. Not so much to cook with. Usually the flaky stuff they save for other applications. So just put a little bit on there if you like. Now that's optional. I know some people don't like it. You know, I also like to put some cayenne in these sometimes. Chocolate and spice go really well together, especially if you've ever had mole poblano, which is like a Mexican chocolate sauce. It definitely sounds better than it is. It's like a ton of different chilies. It's like 20 different dried chilies, and it's a very good sauce if you ever had it. But it's a lot of work. And it's a secret recipe, and that's a different lesson all on its own. So I'm going to pop these bad boys in the oven for 10 minutes and then check them out, and then we'll cool them, and I'll show you how to take this paper off easily. You guys have been in here about 5 minutes. You can kind of see how it's spreading nicely. All right, I'm just going to close the oven because you don't want to let all the heat escape. Okay, corny towel. All right, so these guys are fresh out the oven. They're looking good, because you see they're a little puffy, but you see these crevices and fractures. They're going to shrink in and give you that classic cookie look. So I'm going to leave these to carry over cook on the pan for about a minute or two, and then we'll check the bottoms. You can see how the chunk stands out nicely on top. Maybe you could have had one or more there. Okay, but it gives them a little bit of personality. All right. All right, these are looking money. So they've carried over cooked for about a couple minutes. You see they've set up a little bit more. They've shrunken down, giving us that nice texture and look. So if you poke it a little bit, you can see it's a little gooey, but it's still firm, okay? You can pick it up and you got a nice color. You don't want to get anything darker than this, okay? So now I'm going to let them dry out and cool off a little more. So that trick I was telling you about is you grab the pan with a rag or pot holder so you won't burn your hand, and you carefully pick up one edge of the parchment paper, move towards the middle, and then kind of lift one side up, and then gently start to pull out the paper, and then it all comes out. The pan is here, hot, put it somewhere else. This way you can control the heat and take it off of the sheet tray without leaving it on there. If you had no parchment paper, you would have to shove a spatula under each one to take it off. Or, I mean, if you have kitchen hands, you could use your regular hands. So now I'm going to take these and just slide them on here. You can see how easy it makes to transport things. And now I'm going to do the same kind of motion to just put them on there without having to scrape them or compromise the integrity of the cookie. Okay, just do a slide. These guys are a little extra gooey, but it's okay. Nope. Okay. Okay, so we're going to let them, these guys are a little gooey, so we're going to let them rest a little more and set up. Okay, all right. And then we'll come back to these and we'll open one up and then we'll finish up this lesson. Okay, let's open one up. Let's see, this one I'm going to eat. This is the chunk with the sea salt. You can see all those nice sea salt flakes on top. Give it a nice little burst of salt, if you like. So I'm just gonna kind of just crack this open, and then you can see all that gooiness inside. Okay, that's pretty much what we want, especially from this one because we put extra chocolate chunk in it. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please try this recipe. It's a very, very good recipe. It's been used, tried and true for like about 10 years now, and it only improves with age. You could change it up, use different kind of chocolate, no salt, even try some cayenne pepper if you like some heat with that. All right, so I'm going to eat this now. Okay, have a great day. Okay guys, so one last thing I want to show you is how to stuff these. So I'm going to take some saran wrap. Okay, this is something you could do special if you like. And I'm going to take my cookie dough that I have. It's still a little hard. That's why I'm going to roll it out with my little empanada rolling pin or my little dowel that I use for dumpling wrappers. Okay, so I'm going to take about this much. It's a little over that size that we had. And I'm just going to kind of make a little patty with it. This is really cold from the fridge, so it'll stay together good. All right, now I'm push it down a little bit. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. Then I'm going to take another piece of cling film, put it right over the top. Okay, see how this works out. All right, so I got that bad boy there. Now I'm going to try to just gently roll this out. Okay. Just not rolling out, just push it up like this. It's a big chocolate chunk right there in the middle. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to fold it over a piece of Nutella that I have. Okay. But you want to work with it when it's really cold. You know what? I'm going to take out this chunk here because it's kind of impeding my progress here. Give me 1 sec. All right, so I replaced that big chunk. I just threw it back in our little container here because I don't want to waste it. So now I can get that smoother. Since we had so many nice robust chunks, they were kind of sticking out. So I'm just going to roll this out so it's about 1/4 inch thick. Just feel like this. If you go back and forth, you can see if it's flat enough. Okay, so it's about the consistency I want. Kind of thin, about 1/4 inch. You can see here it's like very thin. So I'm going to take just one layer off because I'm going to use the bottom layer to help me wrap this up. Okay, just be careful because this stuff is sticky and you don't want it to fold everywhere. Alright, so we got basically a kind of like a circle shape that we're going for. Now I have some shot glass of Nutella that I took. Plastic one, so if you want to cut it open, it's okay. I'm just going to run it under a little hot water just to remove it, and I'm going to cut it in half, and then you're going to see what I'm going to do next. Okay, so I carefully cut that in half. This is going to be for another cookie, and then I'm going to put this one right in the center like that. You want it to be frozen because if not, this recipe is not going to work out. Okay. Now, I'm going to fold it over and do like a stuffed chocolate chip cookie with like a molten Nutella center. So the cookie still has to be cold, but this has to be frozen. So by the time this cooks, this will be nice and gooey in the middle. So I want to try to use this like just to help me roll it over a little bit like this. Okay. And then, without putting too much pressure with my hands. Okay, then I want to just form it a little bit. I don't want to put my hands too much because my hands are warm. And that, when they're warm, they're gonna kind of melt the dough a little bit. So take it out like this. Like this. So I'm just gonna shape it just a little bit fast in my hands. Just into that cookie shape. Make sure the seam is closed here. But you want to make sure it has a little room to melt, okay? I'm gonna put this guy on here, all right? Give him enough room to expand, okay? And then I gotta do one different one too. Let me just fast forward to that. So I love peanut butter, and especially now that we have all these leftovers that I stole from my kids from Halloween. Got some Reese's Pieces, some Reese's peanut butter cups. You can do the same thing. Make sure you freeze them. And make this a little interesting stuffed cookie. And you could do this with any kind of candy too. It'll probably work out nice. You throw some Snickers in there, whatever you want. Okay, so let's just put some right in the middle. This is E.T.'s kind of cookie. You probably don't get that reference, but it came out in 1982. Then put one here like that. Probably put two. I don't know if it'll fall, but this will come out nice. Actually, you know what? Let's go for the. Let's do two. Let's see what happens. Let's get nuts. And I am not affiliated with Reese's or its subsidiaries. Okay. All right. Remember, use the plastic again to fold over, so you're not like smudging everything everywhere. Okay. Okay. And then once you get the plastic cellophane nice and tight, you can actually kind of do one of these things and kind of curl it, twist it, so you get form it into a shape, and take it out. Okay. So you gotta make sure the seam is nice on the bottom. This one will be a little wacky, and then we'll see how they come out. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put these in a 350-degree oven for about, I'm going to say maybe, I'm going to check them at 12 minutes. Probably need about 15 because they're so fat. You can see how thick they are. Okay. And we shall return. All right, so these are just right out of the oven, and they're very hot. This is our Nutella one, and this is our Reese's Extravaganza. So I know next time I should space them out. I should use a bigger tray, I don't know. But this guy was really big, so he spread. So, but when they set up a little bit, I'll just easily break them apart. So I'm gonna do that trick I showed you now. And just to let them cool and set up a little bit, okay? Oh wow, big storm tonight, guys. All right, so I'm gonna come back in a little bit when they set. Separate them and give them a nice slice in half. Let's take a look at the midsection. All right, so these are ready to cut. I let them rest about like 5-6 minutes. I'm gonna cut them in half. I just want to change the camera angle so you can see it, the cross section as I cut it open, because from the top is not ideal. All right, so let's check out the Nutella one here. Okay. Oh, that looks nice. Cross section here. I'll fix the zoom. Got all this nice Nutella right in there. You can break it apart. See, it's nice and gooey now. It has that nice molten center without it leaking everywhere. And you see how it spread out nicely throughout the cookie. All right, cool. I mean, you could put a lot more, so it's like a chocolate lava cake, but that wouldn't be so ideal. So let's check out this guy now. See how he came out. This one was like an experiment here. So let me clean my knife. Right off here. There we go. We got a nice cross section. Reese's Pieces party going on right here. So you got the Reese's Pieces, the peanut butter cups all in there. As well as this, it's still nice and soft. So you can do this with any kind of leftovers you may have, especially if you like peanut butter like me. Okay. And that's it for today. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care.